Hey everyone, this is Melissa here, and I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas who is following me or subscribed to me. Today, I want to talk about something a little bit different on my channel about abortion and feminine stuff for women. I want to talk about counting it all joy when you fall into various trials. Um, Many times we fall into these trials in life and we don't know why. We don't know, why this is happening to us. Many times we feel like, what did we do to deserve this? And sometimes we have trials come our way because somebody else may need us or whatever the reason. So, in the context of abortion, what I want to talk about is when things happen to us, we want to be able to have this framed with the gospel. I did a video before talking about turning your life around, and I'm probably going to delete that one because I was at the gym and it just did not look good with me sweating and working out and all that I was doing. So, when we talk about turning our life around, for me, I had family that came from the projects. My grandmother had 10 kids. I don't think they were all hers, or there was some speculation as to which ones were hers. And I'm not trying to, take my family and throw them under the bus, but just talk about that kind of background that a family can grow up in. So I had aunts and uncles from the projects. My grandmother and grandfather had their marriage either annulled or something like that, and they were living separately as the kids were developing at a certain stage in their life. So when you go through dirt poverty, many times my grandmother kept her kids, but I wouldn't know what to do without my aunts and uncles. I would have no idea what my life would have looked like if my grandmother chose to abort her kids. And back then, being a strong Catholic, she would not have done that. Even her father, I was told, wanted her to have more children. And finally, she did use birth control. But even with that last one, and even though things were difficult, many of those children turned their life around later. And my uncle was one of them who I absolutely loved. And so when we have situations that happen, whether for me, in talking again about turning your life around, seeing that, and I obviously didn't see the half of it because I did not grow up in that situation, I actually had better. And I was able to go to school. I know many of them were not able to go to school or finish school, or, growing up, I saw divorce. There were at least one or two that were alcoholics in that family. And you see the divorce, you see the drugs. Many times I was protected from a lot of what was going on around me in the family, but I did lose an uncle and a relationship with him because he chose to do cocaine. And when you see one aunt and one uncle divorce, one after another, after another, after another, as you're growing up, and as you're older, you see, 3 marriages, the messiness can really make you wonder, what the purpose of life is and why things happen. So I tend to think sometimes, even though people make wrong choices, it all is in the end for God's glory. And you come out of those situations, and I'm somebody who got saved. Out of all my whole family, I'm the only one that I know of that was saved. Except maybe there may be one other person who later got saved but I'm talking about in the immediate and extended family. I came out of that. And I don't, all I did was I went to church, I heard the gospel, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And somebody who had this around me, although I was not part of the family as far as when I was growing up, you do have those dynamics and you do have those interactions where a lot of times it feels like I could relate to people in that, in the projects and relate to that pretty well. So, what you want to do is when you've had this kind of stuff happen to you and you wonder, how do I turn my life around? You really have to work at it. You need to be able to have a support system to help you. So for me, the way I turned my life around was by having children. And the abortion forced on me was a decision made where this person came from an orphanage and they came from the projects and they had a rough life, and they felt like the best thing for me was to not have children, when in fact the very best thing, because I've always had a love for kids, was to become a mother. I used to watch my cousins and nieces, well, not nieces, but cousins, and we just had a really big family, and I absolutely love family. But it seemed almost like nobody wanted me to be someone to get married and have kids. It seemed like all the odds were against me. And I did. I did get married and I did have my kids. And what I also did was, after I got saved, is I started going to church and I started turning things around with certain principles in life. I started taking principles from the Bible and applying them to my life. So anybody can turn their life around. And what I want to say is, not only can we turn our life around and work at it, and it takes many years. I went from projects with family to being a homeschool mom. And I went to public school. I graduated early. I couldn't believe the gaps I had in my public education once I started homeschooling. So that was something that took pretty much all of my attention. And I did not have time for everybody in my life, because I was now homeschooling. In my homeschooling, I had to really dig deep because there were so many gaps. Although I was an A/B student, and with my background trying to turn everything around for the better with my own family, I kind of kept my nose to the ground all the way up with my kids. So what we want to do is, when we've had an abortion and it's been forced on us or manipulated or whatever, or we didn't know what it was, we want to make better choices and we want to be able to heal from that. And I just did a video about, healing from bad relationships. Many times part of that abortion equation. So we lived on absolutely nothing, pretty much. We had our kids in a trailer. We didn't have a lot of money, but I was constantly underlyingly working to take the time to read, to take the time to train my kids up to know God. And that was my number one goal, that my kids would know the gospel. Now, in the last years, when I did have a little bit of extra time, I reinvested in myself and I decided to take some classes about abortion and to heal from that. And even recently, it's a long process for a woman to heal depending on her circumstances. I was a kid, and that kind of trauma is too much for a kid. But what we want to do is, once we heal and be able to understand the reality of what really happened, that was a kid. Even though the child was just a fetus at the time, the potential for a child in the future was gone. I mean, it's almost like having a daughter to me who was killed in a car accident, or somebody came along and killed my daughter or my son. So it's something that you can just have a deep, deep anger toward people who made these decisions. You can have that kind of feeling of being mistreated, being used for the benefit of other people. But what you do want to do once you heal is you want to give other people grace. You want to realize the whole situation, where they came from, their background, what they were thinking. And as a Christian, especially when I have made it known that I am a Christian, I know God had forgiven me in any part that I had in it. He forgives others, and we need to be the same way with offering love and forgiveness. And I know the abortion debate is huge right now. It's something that we did not talk about as a society before. Us women, we had no one to talk to, no one to grieve with. And even to this day, we have the two sides where people are speaking up and saying, keep your baby, and other people are just, my body, my choice, and we are not solving the problem. But we do want to give others grace, and especially at Christmas time, where Christ died for us, we want to know the love of Christ, and we want to be kingdom warriors where other people will know that they have a God who loves them deeply. And no matter what you've done, He loves us. So I'm leaving that here for today. I hope that can help any woman who has had an abortion, and that is my goal, to help women heal. Abortion is a big topic, but I'd like to take this down to a niche. We're talking about women healing and enjoying motherhood and enjoying femininity as a woman, and enjoying the softness and the beauty of being a woman, and not allowing abortion to harden you and to make you continue to be in a situation where you cannot heal. You want to be able to run to God. He says He forgives us from the east to the west. He has forgiven our sins. Anyone who comes to Him and believes in Him, confesses their sins to God, will be saved. And we know that none of us are perfect. We all have sinned, and that is something that we need to reconcile with God before we die. We want to know that, none of us are perfect, and we know that we cannot do anything about the mistakes we have made, and we need to be right with God and know that He forgives us, and that we are forgiven, and to walk in forgiveness, and to know that He is such a good God that He sent His Son, Jesus, to die on the cross for us, for our sins, not for Jesus's. Jesus did nothing wrong. He was totally innocent. So back to the context, when we find ourselves in trials, there's usually a reason. And as Christians, we want to count it all joy. There's a reason things have happened. And we don't just want to leave it there that, everything happens for a reason, or have just a positive mindset of, oh, well, just be positive in life. Bring those things to God that are hurting you. He says He is with us. He says that those who are heavy burdened, rest in Him. Come to Him and rest in Him, and He will give you rest. So I hope this is an encouragement today, and this is my last upload before Christmas as I start getting busy with that. Okay, thanks for joining me today, everyone. Take care.